Okay, hi everyone. So this video is just gonna be me talking. So basically, I've been thinking a lot about my collection. I guess my overall kind of decision I made about my collection is that going forward, I want to be a lot more just concise and consistent with my collecting. I've just been kind of coming to the realization that I don't need absolutely everything. And I mean, before I was also kind of collecting with the thought that I don't need absolutely everything. But I guess what has changed is basically that even if I like something a lot, I still don't necessarily need it. So I think like moving forward, I'm just not going to be collecting as many groups. And I guess still, like in comparison to maybe some people, the groups that I'll still be collecting will be considered a lot, but I'm also gonna stop collecting a few groups, and this was after just a lot of consideration because every single group who I collect, I really like their music. And I mean, that's obviously the reason I was buying their albums. It's because I like the music and I want to support the music. And that's always been a big thing for me, is even before I started to get into K-pop, buying and supporting music is just something I've always done, at least when it comes to like my favorite songs, my favorite bands, my favorite artists and things like that. I would always just love to buy their albums. Yeah, basically I've just come to the realization that I don't need everything, especially because I'm just kind of at a certain point in my life where I need to start saving money a little bit more, and I do need to be more conscious and thoughtful about the things that I'm buying when it comes to my collection. With that just comes kind of realizing that even if I do like an album, even if I do really like a group, I don't need to necessarily buy their album. It's kind of hard because, like I said, I've always really liked buying physical releases of my favorites, but especially with kind of collecting K-pop in particular, that for sure is super expensive, and it doesn't really seem plausible for me to continue to collect groups that I'm not into as much. In the groups that I plan to stop collecting, my main thing is that I may love their music, but I don't know the members really, so I guess I don't really stan. And something that's changed a lot, especially in recent years, especially since I like started college and all that kind of stuff, I just don't get into groups in the same way that I used to. Now I casually listen to a lot of groups, and I may know a few members of whatever groups, but I never go out of my way to learn the members of new groups anymore. And a large reason as to why I may know members of some newer groups is mostly because of survival shows. Like, there are so many groups now that I wouldn't know if it weren't for like Produce 101. And that's not a bad thing, but it's like, if they weren't on that show, I probably wouldn't know who they were. Also, there were some groups that I liked the members of, knew the members, really loved them, had a bias and everything, but these days I just don't find myself connecting with the members at all. And I think a huge reason of that is because I don't watch like variety shows, I don't watch reality shows, I don't really watch anything. So that I think is just like a big reason I've kind of lost a connection with a lot of the groups that I used to be a lot more into. An example of that is kind of WJSN, because I think it was right around Secret Era was when I got into them, and I learned the members and everything, and I loved them all. I had a bias in everything, but these days I really love their music. I think what they're releasing these days is really great, and I'm really happy that they're like releasing such amazing music, but I don't connect with the members, therefore I feel like I connect less with the group as a whole. I feel like that makes sense, right? As a result of that, I don't necessarily feel the need to buy their albums anymore, as much as I love them. But yeah, so I was kind of going through, I was just kind of looking at my shelves, I guess. Not necessarily going through them, but I made some notes about, I guess, how I plan to change the way I collect and what I'm going to be doing. So I'll let you look at this for like a second. I'm not going to show it the whole time because I'm going to actually read from it. But this over here is just what I plan to do with my photo card collection, which isn't something I'm having too hard of a problem with these days. But albums, it's kind of an interesting thing. So basically, what I've planned to do is going to sell both the Goo Goo Dolls albums I have, just because I don't plan to collect anything from them in the future. And if I don't see that collection growing, and if I don't have a huge connection with the group, I just don't want to keep the albums. And I'm going to do the same thing with Wiki Mickey. I decided I'd stop collecting them. I decided I was just going to keep the one album I had from them. But at this point, I feel like it's just taking up space rather than anything else. And there's this one EXID album I have that I want to sell. I do love that album so much, but also, again, I just kind of feel like it's taking up space and I don't really need it sitting on my shelf. I decided I'm going to sell one of the two SF9 albums I have. So I have Feeling Sensation and Breaking Sensation, and I have Feeling Sensation signed, so I want to keep that, but I am going to sell Breaking Sensation just because even though I love that album, I don't have as big of a connection to it as I do Feeling Sensation. And yeah, there's just a few special things that I want to keep, and I'm not going to be selling everything that doesn't fall in line with, I guess, my main collecting goals. And I am selling Idol. I do really like their first album. Their second album was kind of a huge miss for me. I like a few songs, and I just did not like Senorita at first. I like it a bit more now, but at first I just straight up didn't like it. And the album I was super disappointed by at first, and I think now there's really only one song from it that I like. So I decided that I'm going to sell Idol and not collect them. I was originally going to do a more selective collecting for them, but now I'm just not going to collect them anymore because, again, it's just kind of taking up space. And there's some things that I'm going to consider whether I want to sell it or want to keep it, and that is my 17 collection, like my 17 albums, both albums and merch. So I recently decided with my 17 collection that I was actually going to let go some of my June photo card collection, and this whole 17 collection problem I've been having, I decided I wanted to deal with really slowly, and I was going to take it very slowly. That's exactly what I've been doing. So at first I just kind of decided that I would stop collecting him and keep what I had, and then I kind of decided that I would cut down my photo card collection and keep my favorite things. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I just kind of made the decision that I'm not going to collect their albums going forward. So I'm going to consider whether or not I'm going to sell some of their discography that I have. There's some albums that I know I want to sell, but I'm gonna kind of go through them, think about it a little bit, at least the ones that I have, and make a decision based off that. And I don't think I'm going to keep everything. I have one signed album I know I'm for sure gonna keep, but other than that, that's not something I've gone through yet, so I don't know exactly what I'm doing with the rest of my 17 album collection. Another group I'm going to consider is Twice. I decided I'm still going to collect Twice in the future. I just don't know exactly how. I just don't know exactly if I'll buy everything. What I collect from them is going to be super selective, and there may even be some albums I don't buy from them, which usually is not something I like to do, but I really do like Twice. It's just not all of their music connects with me. Going forward, I don't know exactly how it'll go. It'll be selective, like I said. But as for the releases and everything I have right now, I think I might cut that down a bit because I already kind of did. I had 2 monographs from them that I sold, actually. That was actually kind of hard for me to do because I loved those things, but I sold them. I got some pretty good money off of them too, I'm not gonna lie. But it was a hard thing for me to consider. But for their past albums, and basically everything I have up to this point, so from like debut to Yes or Yes, I'm going to be going through my albums and figuring out if there's anything I can let go of, if there's maybe multiple versions of an album I don't need, and there's just some other albums that I have multiple versions of that I might sell. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, I should sell those, because there's some albums I feel like I just have so many versions of. With Twice Coaster, there's Twice Coaster Lane 1 and Twice Coaster Lane 2, and if that were to technically be considered one album, I would have 5 versions of it. For Signal, I have 3 versions, but one of them has the same photo book as one of the other 2, so it doesn't seem plausible to keep it, you know? I don't know, so it's definitely something I'm going to go through and consider. That being said though, I am really excited for their new album because the packaging looks just so beautiful and the concept looks so great, and I'm so ready to love it, and I'm going to be so disappointed if I don't. But anyways, I also wrote down that I was going to consider WJSN. I know I mentioned them earlier, but it's also like, I'm going to go through and think about whether I really need to keep what I have, because there's some albums from them that I have that I love, but... And so I wrote down groups that I want to do selective collecting for. So going forward, I'm just going to be a lot more selective with the albums I buy from them. That includes Luna, which they've always been selective collecting for me. I've never necessarily felt the need to have everything they've put out. FX, they're probably not going to put anything out in the future, but if I ever feel like I want to go back and buy an album from their past discography, I'll let myself, but as of right now I don't really have a desire to do that. And then I have 101 solos. I plan to support and collect the 101 solos as much as possible. I'm just not going to buy the releases if I don't love them. And that's not going to be easy because I'm going to want to buy them all regardless, but it's also like I need to love every single one of them because there's going to be so many different releases from the 101 boys. So I have Eyes One. I plan to collect them pretty, I wouldn't say extensively, but I plan to collect their albums. I don't really plan to collect anything outside of that. So like for Korea, I plan to collect most or all versions of their albums. And for Japan, I'll just buy one version of whatever is released in Japan. And that'll be good enough for me. And then I have New East for selective. I don't want to selectively collect New East and I want to collect them fully, but I guess it just kind of depends because New East W's last album, there was 3 versions. I only planned on getting one, and then New East, like OT5 New East, they just like announced the album packaging for their newest album that's coming out soon, and there's 4 different versions of that, and whether I get all 4 or not is totally dependent on how much I love the music, how much I love the concepts. So also Samuel, Seun, and Wonus are going to be selective collecting. I've collected most of their things up to this point, but going forward it is going to be a little bit more selective. And I also have 48 groups as selective. They don't have anything to do with my K-pop collection, but I mean I'm buying and collecting their stuff, so it applies. I have one artist that I'm saying maybe I'll collect, and that's Sam Kim. That's just a huge maybe. If I can get some extra cash, I for sure want to collect his albums. There's some groups I'm waiting to debut so I can figure out if I want to collect them or not, and that is AB6 and One We. And then the last kind of group, I guess, is this section where I'm like 100% collecting these groups. Like I plan to collect all of their stuff, I guess. It's kind of a long list and I don't think I want to cut it down anymore, but basically it's Hotshot, Uptension, NCT, Daya, Brave Rose, CLC, Red Velvet, In Fact, Big Star, Pristin, Chungha, and Shia, and MXM. And all I have to do is basically buy 2 more MXM albums and that'll be complete, and I'll be able to move that to a different section on my list, but I thought I'd add them there. And then Big Star, I haven't really gotten around to collecting their stuff yet, but it's something I'd like to get around to eventually, just because they don't really have a whole bunch of releases and I love every single one of their releases and I don't see them really having any in the future, so might as well buy what I can. And then the last kind of section I have on this list is just groups that I've completed the collection of, or groups that I'm done collecting. Yeah, so it's basically groups that I have but I'm not buying anything from in the future, regardless of whether they're active or not. So yeah, I decided I would kind of write all this out to maybe think it through better and also kind of talk it out to think it through better. I'm just having a lot of, I wouldn't say second thoughts about my collection because I love my collection. It is so much of what makes me happy and excited. But like I said at the beginning, I want to be a lot more just concise and consistent. I don't want to just be buying albums all over the place and then kind of either not be able to afford some things, as in like other comebacks that I'd prefer to buy, just things like that. I just want to make certain parts of my collection more of a priority, and the way I have to go about doing that is cutting down other parts of it, and I'm recognizing that. I'm not really feeling bad about it either. There's certain parts of downsizing my collection I just have to take really slowly, and eventually I'll just kind of get to the point where I'm okay with getting rid of everything. Like with 17 in June, I've just been slowly going over it and thinking it through and realizing that I just don't have too huge of a problem with letting things go. I just tend to get too big of an emotional attachment to things to be able to like immediately be like, I'm dropping this, I'm done. And like another example of something really hard for me to downsize is twice. My Jihyo photo card collection was probably one of the biggest parts of my photo card collection for a long time, and it still kind of is. I wouldn't say compared to Hot Shot it's like nothing, but I just cut down. I'm not getting rid of everything, but someone had suggested to me on the last kind of video I did like this that maybe I should just collect 3 cards from each album instead of, you know, doing the 9. And I was like, yeah, that's actually a really great idea, because I'm not collecting everything, but I'm still getting some things. And I'm not necessarily stressing myself out as much going about it that way. And I mean, for most of their albums prior to What Is Love, they did only really have 3 cards per album, so kind of stays consistent in there. I guess just overall, after saying everything that I've said, I kind of want to slow down my collecting, like in general. One thing about my collection that I want to have and something that I'm working forward is having like a very thorough Hot Shot collection. I want to have a lot of their things, and I know it's going to take me a long time, and I know it's going to take a lot of money to do it, but I'm willing to do it, number one, and number two, and that's just what I really want from my collection, so it's just what I want to focus on more. And I also find space kind of being an issue. I'm running out of space for things. I had to add an extra shelf to my room. I don't know, it's all just kind of all over the place. My goal for this summer is kind of more at the beginning, more at the beginning of the summer in May, June, mostly in June, when I start to work a lot more. My main goal is to catch up on a lot of the physical releases I'm missing, and I'm almost kind of hoping I can just make one huge order and kind of round a lot of things out and then not buy much for the rest of the summer. That's just kind of my goal, and it's what I really want to do. I just need to save. I just need to start saving a lot more money, and I'm starting to realize that more. And just kind of with everything that I've talked about, I just feel like cutting down my collection, selling some of it, is the best way to go about it. So yeah, that was basically everything. This was just a huge ramble, and it probably made absolutely no sense, so I apologize for that. And I assume not many people even watched this whole thing, which I'm fine with. I just needed to kind of say things out loud and kind of process thoughts. So that was everything, I guess. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.
안녕! 안녕!